119 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. We're on to the Texas A&M Aggies, who had a phenomenal recruiting class, the best of all time coming into this season. And wait to see my thoughts on how I think this recruiting class is going to do in 2022. But it was a fairly disappointing year for Jimbo Fisher and company last year. So can the Texas A&M Aggies push towards that next step and towards their first ever college football playoff berth in 2022? Or will the Aggies possibly have to wait till 2023 for that recruiting class to really see an impact? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And hey, I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, so you guys know when I upload your favorite team. And this goes out to Texas A&M fans in this video. But in case you guys want to go watch more of my videos, is you guys are going to know a lot more about your team than I will. So if you feel like I missed something, got something wrong, want to add something on, anything like that, leave it in the comment section down below, and I will be happy to read through them. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into Texas A&M in 2022. They are my third-ranked team in the SEC on the heels of the best recruiting class of all time. But they're also on the heels of a pretty disappointing season in my mind. You went 8-4, 4-4 in conference, and then had to skip your bowl game due to COVID stuff. Now, of course, that is not your fault. But you're going to play Wake Forest, and the way Wake Forest played that day, you might have even lost the bowl game. So you might have even been looking at an 8-5 record here for Texas A&M. And that's just under Jimbo Fisher at this Texas A&M program, just something that shouldn't have happened last year. Now, again, some things are out of their control. Haynes King got hurt. Zach Calzada had to run the offense, which was not that great last year under Zach Calzada in terms of the rest of the SEC. They did not even average over 400 yards a game last year. Instead, averaged around 390, so close, but not quite at that 400-yard mark you'd like to see offenses get to, with around 29 points per game. On the defensive side of things, though, their defense was really good last year. 330 yards per game, along with around 16 points per game. Very good stats there for the Texas A&M defense. But that offense has got to stay healthy, take that step in the next direction. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But under head coach Jimbo Fisher, and they're also getting a new defensive coordinator here as well. Leaving and transferring out of this program, Zach Calzada. Zach Calzada was, of course, that quarterback last year that led this team once Haynes King got hurt. Calzada had 2,185 yards along with 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year. So, again, you'd like to see better numbers from a guy at a program like Texas A&M, but, again, Zach Calzada came in and had to do his best in a bad situation, right, with the Haynes King injury. Running back Isaiah Spiller is gone, had 1,011 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. Some guys in the wide receiver room, Damon Demas, Caleb Chapman, but their leading receiver is gone, Jalen Weidermeyer, the tight end, 515 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. On the defensive side of things, Clemens, Leal, Peavy, Johnson, Aaron Hansford, who was their leading tackler last year with 89 tackles, also had 2 sacks, 4 passes defended. And then a guy that was lead for tied in interceptions last year in Leon O'Neal, 58 tackles last year, 2 picks, 5 passes defended for him last year. So lots of talent leaving this Texas A&M team. But again, there's a plethora of talent coming back, and I mentioned his name already in this video, but Haynes King is coming back, and he figures to be that starting quarterback coming into 2022. But for Max Johnson, I keep having little birdies tell me that Max Johnson may very well be that starting quarterback on opening day. I think, obviously, Haynes King has the higher upside, has the better playing ability when he's playing at his best. But Max Johnson, the former LSU transfer who came in this year, is the safer option. And he's definitely had more experience than Haynes King, and he's been healthier over his career than Haynes King. But if Haynes King is that starting quarterback coming out week 1, he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to clean up his decision-making abilities here as well. Last year, had 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions before he got hurt for the rest of the season. So he's got some stuff to work on, definitely, but I think the upside with him is too tremendous to, again, not value and not make him the starter opening day. But if Max Johnson were to be the starter opening day, wouldn't be surprised. I think Devon Achane is one of the best running backs in the nation, 910 yards and 9 touchdowns coming into 2022. That was the stat line from 2021. Leading wide receiver Anaya Smith coming back, 509 yards and 6 touchdowns, along with guys like Chase Lane, Jalen Preston. And you also get Evan Stewart, and this is one of the freshmen coming in. Evan Stewart coming in, a freshman at the wide receiver position, figures to, play some pretty meaningful snaps. Couple other freshmen coming in at the defensive line, Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart. Another Shamar, that's Shamar Turner, coming back on the defensive line for this team. Had only 14 tackles, 1.5 sacks last year, but figures to provide a bigger role with all that talent gone off the defensive line. Andre White and Garen Cooper coming back. Cooper, pretty good for him last year, 58 tackles and half a sack. Had an interception last year as well, or I should say assisted on a sack. Denver Harris, another freshman coming in for this team. We're also returning guys like Matthews, Johnson, Richardson, Jalen Jones, who also had 2 interceptions last year. So some pretty good talent still coming back for this Texas A&M team. And this is the Texas A&M team that should see improvement in 2022. Let's look at this Texas A&M Aggies schedule. You got Sam Houston, App State, UMass in non-conference. That should be wins. And then Miami. That's an interesting game against Miami that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Neutral site games in conference play, or I should say a neutral site game in conference play against Arkansas. And Texas A&M ended up losing to this Arkansas team last year, as Arkansas was really, really hot to start out the season last year. Texas A&M is definitely going to go into that with a different game plan than they had last year, and might even come out with the win there in that neutral site game. Other than that, though, road games for this Texas A&M team in conference play. You got Mississippi State, Alabama, South Carolina after the bye week against Alabama, and Auburn, and home games against Ole Miss, Florida, and LSU. So talking about these games a little bit, of course, the non-conference games that jumps out to everyone is the game against Miami. They're going to start that home and home this year. And Miami's very, very interesting. They're returning Van Dyke at quarterback. That figures to be the guy after the De'Aaron King experiment. Didn't really work out in year 2. And then you also have Mario Cristobal, the former Oregon coach, coming back to his alma mater to coach for Miami. So Miami's going to be one of those teams to watch this year in 2022 to see how they're progressing, how they're getting along. But I think Texas A&M will be as well, and I think Texas A&M has the bigger talent gap. So we'll see what happens there in that game. Again, that neutral site game against Arkansas, you got to watch out for. Arkansas absolutely won that game last year. There was no doubt towards the end of that game that Arkansas was going to pull away and win that one. And again, it was just part of a rough season for Texas A&M last year as well. But Arkansas is definitely going to bring it again this year. They're still going to be a solid football team. A&M's got to watch out. Then they got very, very tricky road game stretch here. On the road against Mississippi State in Starkville. That's a team with fans that are hoping that team can take the next step, maybe become a 7, 8, possibly 9-win team. That's going to be a pretty solid football team there in Starkville, and the Cowbells are going to be loud when the Aggies come to town. Same thing with Tuscaloosa, and that's just going to be loud, period. Tuscaloosa is a hard place to play, but with also all the drama that Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban have been going on with, yeah, that's going to be a very, very fun football game. On the road against South Carolina, look, that's a scary road game. You got to watch out for South Carolina. That's a team that I think can surprise a lot of people this year. And then home games here, you got Ole Miss, Florida, 2 very interesting games. 2 quarterbacks that probably could be in the Heisman race in late season. 2 very interesting games there. On the road against Auburn, I probably see Texas A&M winning there, but again, it's in Jordan-Hare, so you got to watch out. Then, of course, the home game against LSU. I think LSU's got a lot of unknowns this year. So if LSU proves to be a good team for the first 11 games this season, could be a very good game. I don't do a game-by-game prediction, so I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict the team's record. And here we go. If you're in red, probably not going to win the game. If you're in orange, still probably not going to win. But hey, college football upsets can happen. Yellow-green are your 50-50 upset. Or excuse me, yellow is your 50-50 upset potential games. Yellow-green are games that you should win. But again, it's college football. Upsets can happen, and games in green are, well, games that you're probably going to win. So 3 games in green. That's Sam Houston, App State, and UMass. Sam Houston, App State, of course, normally opponents that you shouldn't be taken lightly, but just with the talents on this A&M team, I think they'll win it just fine. UMass, That's pretty self-explanatory. Come on, it's UMass. And then that last non-conference game there against Miami. Again, it'll be an interesting one to watch. And I think if Miami is good enough and they've proven themselves through the first 2 games, maybe they can give Texas A&M a little scare here in Kyle Field in this one. But, I mean, Texas A&M definitely has the talent gap this year. And definitely maybe even should have the talent gap next year when they go on the road and play that game as well. But focusing on this game this year in 2022, should still be an interesting game to watch. One of the bigger non-conference games of the year. But Texas A&M should probably be pretty sizable favorites there in that one. We're going to skip the middle of the schedule, go to their last 4 games. I think they should win all their last 4 games. Again, Florida, not going to be a great football team this year, but they're led by a quarterback that can absolutely take them places in Anthony Richardson. So you got to watch out for that Florida team under new head coach Billy Napier. Auburn, we have no idea if Brian Harson's going to survive that long into the season or not. And again, Auburn, just not going to be that great of a football team this year compared to where they were in last year and compared to the rest of the SEC, in my opinion. And LSU, is Brian Kelly going to be a good fit in Baton Rouge? It remains to be seen. A lot of unknown things about this LSU program. The talent is there, but the results have not been there for the past couple of years. So we'll kind of see what happens with LSU and Brian Kelly this year. But to me, you got to focus on those 5 games right in the middle of the schedule. Arkansas, the story wrote itself last year. You got to focus on things you did wrong in that game. Come into that game against Arkansas, who's going to bring it again this year, and fix it and get the win in Arlington there in that game. Again, 3 very, very tough road games here. Of course, the road game against Alabama. Put that one in yellow. With all the feuding that's been going on, there's a lot of fuel to the fire in that game, and it's going to be fantastic to watch. Alabama probably is going to be the favorite there in that game, though, in Tuscaloosa. But Texas A&M can absolutely go in and win it. Then a couple other tricky road games with Mississippi State and South Carolina. They're both teams that can surprise a lot of people this year and that are capable of pulling off a big-time upset like this. Texas A&M's got to be careful. And then, of course, that home game against Ole Miss there as well should be a fun one to watch. I see Texas A&M going 10-2 in 2022. There are a lot of highly touted recruits coming into this team this year, but only a handful of them, usually when you have this good of a recruiting class, there's only a handful of them that are going to make their impact felt first year on this team, which is why I don't think Texas A&M is an 11-win team quite yet. Now, they could be an 11-win team this year and maybe win a game more than I'm expecting them to, but I think this year, 10-2 is a pretty good measurement of where this Texas A&M team is going to be. I know a lot of people think this team should be a playoff contender by now, but I think look towards 2023. 2023, I think, is going to be the year of the Texas A&M Aggies when you got a lot of these guys in this recruiting class, in the system, and working at it. Maybe Haynes King is still that starting quarterback, or you bring in the freshman that you guys got in the recruiting class there as your starting quarterback in year 2. So, guys, that's going to do it for my A&M. One of those videos was a little longer, but I had a lot more to talk about this team. If you guys enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next one. Goodbye.